Hey everybody! I'm here today to show you and tell you how to measure and make a perfectly straight line on wood before making a cut. This will be a super duper easy peasy tutorial, so let's get right into the video. Now for some things when you're building or when you're constructing, you can make a rough cut. It doesn't have to be exactly precise. If you're doing something like framing or anything that's behind the walls, for the most part it doesn't have to be precise down to like the 16th of an inch, okay? And it doesn't have to be a perfectly straight cut because it all gets covered up. But when you're doing finishing carpentry, for instance, it needs to be perfectly straight. When I redid my basement at my old house, for the framing, I just got the job done. It was nice and plumb. It was level. That's all that mattered. Not every cut was absolutely perfect. But when I had built the hearth and the mantle for my fireplace in the basement, everything was perfectly straight. And it was an electric fireplace. So, I mean, according to the code and stuff, I was using a lot of wood. It was totally fine because it was an electric unit. But with that being said, every cut was precise. The angle, the line, everything was perfect. Okay? So here's how to make a perfectly straight cut. Usually when you're measuring and you're just trying to get the job done, you measure, you put a line on there, you cut it. It's done, right? It's never perfect, but you don't even really try it. Now, when you want to make a perfectly straight cut, a few things have to happen. First and foremost, your measuring tape, you want to make sure it's butted up directly against the edge of the wood. You don't want it to be slightly over, or slightly under. Like, make sure it's butt up perfectly against the edge of the wood. I'm going to lock it in place just for the sake of this video. Now, the next thing that you want to do is figure out what is the actual length that you need to cut, and be precise. Don't say about. There's no about when you're making a precision cut. So I'm going to say exactly 5 inches just to make it simple. Here's the 5-inch mark. Now, usually you just put a line like this, right? You just put a line like that. And that is good for making a rough cut, but in order to be precise, you need to make an actual arrow pointing to the exact spot. That's going to give you a precise mark as to where the thing is, because where the measurement is. If I just put one line, that line can be on an angle. I don't know which part of the line is exactly 5 inches. So I go to the 5-inch mark and I put one, and I'll show you what it looks like in a moment. I'll make it nice and dark, but I put one line like that pointing to the exact point of the 5-inch mark, and another line like that pointing to the exact point of the 5-inch mark right there. Okay, so I'll just show you right here. As you can see, it doesn't have to be this dark, but just for the sake of this video, I made a nice double line pointing to the exact 5-inch mark. So I know where those two lines intersect, that's exactly 5 inches. If you compare it to the other line that I drew, the other line is slightly off, okay? So you want two lines pointing to the exact marking, okay? Now, in addition, if you really want to be precise, you can put a check mark on the side of the wood that you need. So I can put a check mark with a circle here and an X on the side of the wood that you don't need. And that's if both sides are relatively even, or if you're handing it off to someone else. But that's an optional step. Now the next thing is, in order to get a perfectly straight line where that 5-inch mark is, or whatever measurement it is, you need something that's a perfectly 90-degree angle. Right now I have, I don't know, I call this a speed square. I don't know, I used it for framing my basement and for doing all sorts of cuts when I did all my renovations on my previous house and on this house, and I use it all the time, to be honest with you, but I don't know what the official term is. I call it a speed square. You need something with a perfectly 90-degree angle. You can honestly use a sheet of printer paper. As long as you line it up with the edge precisely, you can use anything, or the edge of a book. I mean, as long as you line it up with the edge of the wood, you can use anything that has a perfectly 90-degree angle. Then what you're going to do is line it up with that marking that we made. Okay, it's lined up with the marking. Make sure you incorporate the width of the lead of the pencil, or whatever marking unit you're using. And then you're going to draw a nice perfectly straight line along the edge of that speed square. Make sure that that gate, that fence, I believe it's called, is up against the wood. And what we have here is we have a perfectly straight line as to where we need to make our cut. And then this line is perfectly, at a perfect 90 from the edge of the wood. Then we can go with our saw, and we can make sure our saw is going to make a precise cut. Now, like I said, this is a lot of work. It's not required for everything, and it does get faster when you practiced it. But, for something that requires a precision cut, in my opinion, that's the way to do it. You're going to get literally the most precise cut possible. Then you got to make sure your saw is nice and precisely calibrated, and you have a nice good blade on it. And then you're good to go. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down below as a comment. And of course, be sure to subscribe for more great videos just like this one. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.